Hey, I got a quiz for you. What do all of these movies have in common? Correct! They were all terrible. But what else do they have in common? Well, for one thing, despite the fact that most people didn't like them, nobody really hates the people who were involved in making it. Nobody blames Josh Trank for Fantastic. We all understand it was the executives who ruined it. Nobody hates Joel Schumacher for the bat nipples because he apologized for that. And as much as we all might complain about Jar Jar Binks, none of us hate George Lucas. Deep down, we all love him because he's always had the fans' back. He's never been a dick to the fans. That, however, is not something that we can say for Sony's Ghostbusters remake, because they have been total pricks. And not just to critics, because critics haven't seen the movie yet, so they haven't been able to review it. But they've been pricks to all of us. Yes, you watching this right now. Sony has gone after you personally. Let me explain. We all know that the first trailer is now infamous for being the most hated and downvoted trailer ever on YouTube before. So much so that when they released the second trailer and the international trailer, rather than releasing them here on the official page where all of the dislikes could be concentrated, they released them on a bunch of other pages so that the downvotes would be distributed amongst all of them. And at this point, Sony decided to send out an army of bots to delete all critical comments from the trailers. But leaving in place any comments that were racist or sexist. And they did this to create the false impression that if people don't like the Ghostbusters remake, oh, it's not because it's a bad movie, it's just because we're all racist, sexist pigs. Screw you, Sony. How dare you call all of us racists when you're the one who are actually protecting these racist comments in your video? How dare you call all of us sexist when you are especially targeting any reasonable criticism from female viewers to create this fake misogyny? Oh no, here's a female that thinks that the trailer sucks. That kind of destroys our whole sexism excuse. Quick, let's just delete it. In fact, yeah, let's delete every comment from any female that says anything critical about this. Gee, Sony, for a movie that screams and screams about girl power, that seems to be kind of a sexist approach. Go to the first trailer now and see if you can try to find a single comment in there that's constructive criticism as to why they don't like it. You can't find it, and that's not because they weren't there like Sony would like you to think. It's because these bots have deleted them all. Sony even found a way of deleting the dislikes. I didn't even know you could do that, but they somehow found a way. Many have noticed that the dislike numbers, they were about to hit 1 million on the first trailer, but then all of a sudden it dropped down to 800,000. Eventually it creeped its way back up to about 970,000, ready to crack that 1 million mark again, and then magically down once again. Sony won't let it crack the 1 million dislikes, even though it already has. It might even be approaching something like 2 million downvotes by the time the movie actually comes out. But Sony won't let it get that way, they'll just keep tampering with the stats. You do realize, Sony, that you won't be able to manipulate the box office in the same way, right? And this lie of misogyny versus the movie is being pushed over and over and over by the cast and the crew in all the interviews and all the promotional stuff they do.
A lot of these guys,
terrific fellas.
Yeah, who seem to have, I don't know, maybe very empty lives, are upset because they say, oh, well, we can't have female Ghostbusters because only men can fight imaginary ghosts in a make-believe movie.
Things are happening in a place that you ignore. A place that, by the way, has already forgotten about you. I mean, who the f*** are you? You hate bloggers, you mock Twitter, you don't even have a Facebook page. You're the one who doesn't exist. You're doing this because you're scared to death, like the rest of us, that you don't matter. And you know what? You're right. You don't. It's not important, okay? You're not important. Get used to it.
But it infuriates me that they're carrying on like there's this big backlash online against this movie because of all the racists and sexists. You did that, Sony. You're the one who created that with your army of bots. You did that, not us. Don't try to put that on us. A while back, James Rolfe, aka the Angry Video Game Nerd, made a video explaining that he won't do a review of this film because he's already seen enough from the trailers to know that he's not going to like it, and he's sick and tired of Hollywood making terrible remakes of classic movies. A sentiment that is shared by many of us. Now, you would think that Sony would actually be glad if someone already knows they're going to hate the movie that they don't review it, because that means it's one less bad review out there. But no. Sony went on full attack mode against James Rolfe on this, with articles springing up all over the place calling Rolfe a sexist, a bigot, a misogynist, a woman hater, everything you could imagine, even though he'd never actually really mentioned the all-female cast in his reasons for why he's not seeing it.
For instance, IndieWire stated that it doesn't take a giant leap of logic and faith to presume that his ideological problem with the film stems from the fact that it stars 4 women in a previously male-dominated franchise, and that the gendered outcry around the film has dominated social media and YouTube comments for months now. Several outlets painted a picture of Rolfe as a parents' basement-dwelling misogynistic sexist man-child, making him the face of the alleged haters of the movie. Attacks got even more personal on Twitter, where some even brought in his family. Freelance film critic Eric D. Snyder stated that he kept fixating on Rolfe's wedding ring, in disbelief that someone quote-unquote actually married this man-baby, while Daniel Carson of The Slate followed up by describing Rolfe's wife as quote-unquote probably a gold digger who just married him for his Star Trek V gumball.
And the comments from some of the Sony bigwigs and the cast and crew back these up.
What they don't say when they're typing is that, like, 1 minute after they type that, their mom's like, "Get upstairs and take out the garbage. You're 45 years old."
But I think you're probably more right than even people would believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this pathetic charade continued with the director saying this.
On May 2nd, the New York Daily News published Feig's comment that geek culture is home to some of the biggest assholes I've ever met in my life. His comments did not cause much soul-searching and regret in the fan community. On the contrary, fans seem to take issue with the director calling them assholes, which, if anything, increased the level of vitriol directed at the movie a few notches. It took 1 full week before Feig modified the comments that were spreading like wildfire. On May 9th, Feig clarified that while the comments were published only the week before, he had made them in 2015, shortly after the new Ghostbusters were announced, before the trailer outcry ever hit. Furthermore, he claimed his asshole comments were meant to be directed at the online trolls, none of which he had ever met in person, and not at fandom at large. This, however, was not the end of shaming fans.
And Melissa McCarthy following along with this tired old stereotype from the 90s.
She told The Guardian that she imagined the males critical of the movie to have no spouse and no friends, just sitting in front of the computer and spewing hate into the fake world of the internet.
Now, as if them making this movie in this way wasn't already evidence enough of how out of touch they actually are with the real world and real people and their audience, this whole dismissal of the online criticism as being basement-dwelling bigots confirms just how out of touch they are. Because first of all, as we already discussed, we're not bigots. The reason the comment section looks that way is because of you, Sony. You made it that way. Secondly, people like this seem to believe that there are 2 groups of people. The normal people who go to see movies, who are really well adjusted and nice, and then the people online, who are all weirdo freaks. Let me tell you something, Sony. They're the same people. The people online are also the same people that go to see the movies in cinema. This stereotype of online people being friendless trollers living in their mum's basement is a myth. And every single study that has been done on this, and there have been many, especially with the gaming community, has proved it to be a myth. One particular study, done by a collection of different universities, found, and I quote, "Gamers aren't the antisocial basement dwellers we see in pop culture stereotypes. They're highly social people." And this won't be a surprise to the gaming community, but it's worth telling everyone else. Loners are the outliers in gaming, not the norm. Now, granted, that study was for online gaming and Sony is mostly attacking YouTubers and the YouTube community, but those 2 worlds are kind of intertwined, so what happens in the gaming world can equally be said for here on YouTube. And you don't need a study to prove that to be true. All you have to do is look around YouTube, something that Sony obviously hasn't done. Here on YouTube, you'll find family blogging channels and pickup artists. You'll find beauty and makeup channels and doomsday preppers. You'll find social justice warriors and the alt-right. You'll find everything. You'll find people from all different walks of life, living all different kinds of lifestyles. Lifestyles as varied as the people in the real world. And that's because they are people from the real world. So Sony, you think that by dismissing all of us as basement dwellers, that you're separating your audience from the trolls, but really all you're doing is separating your audience from you. You're essentially spitting in the face of the very people that you need to come and see your movie. Well, guess what? Doesn't work that way. You need us, we don't need you. You don't get to call all of us racist, sexist, bigot, basement-dwelling losers based off a lie that you created, and still get to expect all of us to go and see your garbage remake of a classic movie. Doesn't work that way, Sony. And that is why Ghostbusters deserves to die. Not because it's a remake, not because it's got all girls in it, not because it might be a crap movie, but because Sony are a bunch of pricks and they decided to spit in all of our faces as the audience. Oh, and by the way, while that basement dweller stereotype has proven to be a myth, one stereotype that actually has proven true is that movie producers are a bunch of neurotic messes racked with deep insecurities who spend most of their time either in therapy or popping Xanax. Which, based off how Sony has acted with all of this Ghostbusters stuff, they must have a lot of those guys in that company. These are the same guys who drove the Spider-Man name so deep into the ground that they eventually had to sell it, which turned out to be a good thing because Marvel got the rights back. So hopefully once they're done driving the Ghostbusters name into the ground, somebody else can buy it who can make a cool movie out of it. So until that day, hashtag Sony is cancer. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I want to direct you towards another channel called Midnight's Edge, clips of which I used throughout this video that you'll see here. It's a really amazing channel. It covers a lot of behind the scenes stuff in amazingly in-depth detail without putting a certain spin on it, which is really great to see. And they've made a whole series of videos about all the different shenanigans that have gone on with Ghostbusters, and just recently they combined them all into one video, which is about 20 minutes long, and I highly recommend you check it out. I'm going to link it right here. Subscribe to Midnight Edge because they're amazing. They got a whole series of videos about all the stuff that happened with Fantastic Four, as well as many, many other movies. And thanks for watching. See you guys later.
Ever since it was first announced, Sony Pictures' 2016 reboot of the Ghostbusters, helmed by director Paul Feig, has been mired in controversy and production problems. The barrage of rumors has been so constant that it almost requires a full-time job to keep track of it all. This video aims to cut through the noise and give you the full story behind the story of Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, and will go through the early development of Ghostbusters 3 under Ivan Reitman, how Paul Feig's Ghostbusters wound up getting made instead, Sony's plans for a shared Ghostbusters universe, the rumors that the original cast were strong-armed into participating, the rumored production trouble and story synopsis, and the perceived outcry over the female cast.